Hey everybody. I am 1 month postpartum and I am finally have some time to tell my birth story. We got the little guy right here. Oh. And gosh, this is just gonna start like maybe 2 weeks before the birth to get into like why it kind of went down the way it did. So as some of you may have seen, I shared on Instagram that I had this god awful rash called PUPS. I forget what it stands for. And it basically is like a full body rash. It was so awful and it got worse postpartum, which I didn't expect. So that started about 2 weeks before I went into labor, and it was getting progressively more miserable and nothing really seemed to help. I started taking Benadryl once a night because I was just like, I need to sleep. I was waking up in the middle of the night scratching like crazy. Anyway, long story short, I manifested that my baby would be born on my birthday, May 21st. My due date was May 26th. And I was just like, I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. And so May 21st came and went. And I was like, all right, guess this baby's going to have their own birthday. Due date came and went. And, in my experience, typically subsequent pregnancies are shorter, like baby will come earlier. And that's what happened with my second. So my first was born at 41 and 1, and then I went into labor 39 and 6. Um, I okay. Um, and I was like, oh, well, of course, I'm going to give birth earlier than 39 and 6, which makes giving birth on my birthday, 39 and 1, make perfect sense. So due date came and went, and I had told my parents to come June 1st. I was like, I think safe to say coming June 1st will definitely, like, the baby will be here for sure. So my mom booked their flights for May 31st because just made more sense. I think the flights were cheaper, whatever. So I was like, okay, great, baby will be born by then. So like May 27th comes around, May 28th comes around. I'm like, okay, little baby, you can come whenever you want, but I need you to get here before my parents come because I'm gonna be not well if I'm still pregnant and my parents are supposed to like be here helping out with my kids when the baby's born. So on May 29th, I took a bath that night because I was super itchy, and I decided to do a self check. Um, I obviously don't know how to do a cervical check, like I wasn't checking for dilation, but I just decided to do a check to see if I could feel the head. And if you're like a first time mom, you've never felt a baby come out of you before, it's can be more difficult to be like, what am I what am I feeling for? But usually if your baby is low and you have done this before, you know what it kind of feels like. A hard mass is not you, it's your baby. So oh, no one's gonna come in here again. Um, so I did a self-check that night and I felt the head. And I was like, okay, hell yeah, I can feel the head. Baby's low. Let's do this. Nothing happens that night. Don't go into labor. So I teach class the next morning. I'm working out. I'm like, please let my water break while I'm teaching class. Nothing happens. So I have a midwife appointment after, and I texted my midwife the night before and I was like, okay, I felt the head, and can you just check and confirm that what I felt was the head tomorrow? She said, sure. Do you want a cervical check? I was like, okay. So in my birth education classes and to all my doula clients, I'm like, do not get a prenatal cervical check. Like, and I still stand by that. Like, there's really no need to get a cervical check because it's a moment in time of information. It is not, um, it's not indicating of labor starting. Like, it's really, it's um it's just information. It doesn't really mean much. But I was like, sure, why not? Let's check and see where I'm at, because like I had felt like I was in prodromal labor for a while. My Braxton Hicks contractions were extremely intense for a long time. And so I was kind of like, am I having prodromal labor? Am I having intense Braxton Hicks? Like, I don't really know what's going on. So I said, yeah, sure, check my cervix. And she goes, Do you want a membrane sweep if your cervix is ripe and supple? She was like, do you want to have your baby this weekend? And I was so miserable with this rash. That's why I started the story with a rash. I was so fucking miserable with this rash. Yeah. Okay. Guys, I'm making a video, okay? Stash, you need to wait. Okay, I'm gonna pause this. Okay, sorry. Mom life. Um, so I was so miserable with this rash, and I was like really just I wasn't even stressed about my parents coming when I was pregnant. It wasn't a feeling of stress or anxiety. It was just like I just don't want to feel like a pot of boiling water. I don't want my parents to be just like waiting around for a baby to be born. Like I was like, this is not the plan. So I was like, yes, I want the baby to be born this weekend. I'll do a membrane sweep. It's my third baby. So I have two previous successful home births where my cervix knows what to do and all that. So I was like, sure. And I really trust my midwife. And I'm pretty like, up until now, I was like very anti membrane sweep until like there's some legal act, like not legal action, but like unless your midwife's not going to catch your baby because you're almost 42 weeks, I wouldn't recommend getting a membrane sweep, especially for a first-time mom. Um, Meaning it's kind of like a last resort, measure of induction, and it doesn't always work, and it can actually potentially injure the cervix. Like there's a lot of things I don't love about the membrane sweep, but then sometimes it works. So I'm not 100% against them, but I, proceed with caution when it comes to membrane sweeps. So she was like, do you want a membrane sweep? I was like, yeah, because you know what? I really want to have this baby. Like I'm so impatient. This has been the most impatient pregnancy I've ever had, which is crazy because I was like not even close to 41 weeks. I mean, I was 40 and 4. So anyway, she checks my cervix and I'm 3 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced. And I was like, oh shit, okay, that's good. And the dilation I wasn't as, stoked on. Like that to me was like whatever. But the 70% effacement's really good. So my cervix was very, very thin. So like baby was coming down, cervix was making room for baby. We could go from 3 to 10 in an hour. We could go from 3 to 10 in 24 hours, a couple days from now, whatever. She's like, listen, I don't do membrane sweeps on cervixes that aren't like supple, ripe, ready. She's like, this is the cervix that I would do a membrane sweep on. I was like, okay, let's do it. In my mind, I was like, it's not going to work. Like, I was just like, there's no way this is going to work. I guess I'm going to go to 41 weeks again. Fuck my life. Um, so that was at around noon. Drive home, it was about a 45-minute drive home, and I started having contractions at around 2:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, oh, okay. And these were very different than Braxton Hicks contractions. I was like, okay, these are the labor contractions I've been waiting for. But I was not in denial, but I was just kind of like, all right, like it could just be because she did the membrane sweep and like, fuck, did I just start a real prodromal labor situation? Like, am I going to be here for days? I wasn't really regretting my decision, but I was kind of like, man, is this real? Then I had a chiropractor appointment at 3:30, so I left at like 3:10. And of course, when I got up and got in the car, contractions stopped and slowed down. I was like, all right, I'm not in labor. Like, that was fake. Go to the chiropractor, get adjusted because I had slept wrong on my neck the night before, so my neck was all jacked up. And came home. Again, as soon as I got home, kind of nothing. But then I laid on the couch, and I probably laid on the couch from about 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, maybe even 6:30, just chilling, really assessing, okay, what's going on in my body. And as soon as I laid down on the couch, contractions started again. And they were like 16 minutes apart, 12 minutes, 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes, 15, 9, 8, 11, early labor, very much tracking early labor. So I'm texting with my midwife at like 6, and I'm like, hey, like I am in early labor. Like, here's what's going on. They're not really intense. She's like, okay, I'm gonna come. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, no, no, no. Like, you don't need to come right now. She's like, okay, I'll leave at 7. She was an hour away. I was like, no, that's way too early. Like, I don't feel like this is gonna happen like till way later. She's like, okay, well, just text me if anything changes. And I was like, okay, I will. At 6:30, I think we were eating dinner. Maybe we ate dinner at 6. Anyway, can't remember exactly. But I was having contractions through dinner. I was eating. I felt fine. Um, and I I was just kind of like, ah, like they are getting more intense, but like, you don't need to leave yet. Like I'm putting my kids to bed. Like this, I'm good. I was like, leave at 7:30. Actually, leave at 8. She's like, oh, hey, buddy. So, so she's like, I'm gonna leave at 7:45. I was like, okay, great. So I'm putting my daughter to bed. It's about 7:20. And it felt fine, fine, fine. 11 minutes apart, 9 minutes apart, normal. And at 7:35, they went from 11 minutes apart to 4 minutes apart, like literally nothing in between. And so I texted her at 7:35, I think you should leave now. She was like, Emily, I knew I should have left at 7. I'm never listening to you again. Um, and I was like, I'm sorry. I They were immediately active labor. Like they went from 11 minutes apart to 4 minutes apart to 3 to 2, like literally in 10 minutes. And then they were every 2 minutes, every 90 seconds after that. So I go downstairs because I tell my husband I can't even put Siobhan to bed because I'm keeping her awake because I'm like very vocal. I wasn't like yelling, I was just like kind of moaning as I dance right now to keep the baby asleep. Um, it's okay, little guy. So I'm like, I can't put her to bed. Like she's staying awake. Okay, I'm gonna pause this really quick again. Okay, nursing the baby. So, finally, my husband comes downstairs maybe 15 minutes later because he's starting to hear me really get really vocal. And I was like, whoa, this is happening extremely fast. Like, I know I said I wanted a fast labor, but holy hell, this went from like 0 to 60 really fast. So, he comes downstairs, fills the tub up with air, like we inflate the pool. Um, and uh my midwife texts me that her ETA is 8:30, I think. At this point it's like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, God, this is going really, really fast. Like there's so much pressure, like it's crazy. So I'm having contractions probably every 2 minutes. And um, okay. Finally, the tub is getting full. I'm not in yet. I'm like leaning over on my bed. I don't exactly remember what time it was. I could check my texts. Not right now, Stosh. We're gonna try to make it ourselves. 1 second. Oh my God, this has been my life for the last month. Like literally not a second. Not a second without interruption. Okay, so I'm leaning over my bed, making all the noise. I'm like, good God, this is happening really fast. My husband's like, is the midwife gonna get here in time? I was like, I think so. And I am leaning over my bed, and all of a sudden, little pop. I'm luckily put on my granny panty diapers, and of course my water breaks. Diaper fills up with water, and I was like, my water just broke. My husband's like, oh shit. So I texted my midwife, water just broke. She said, okay, I'm 5 minutes away. At that point, the pool was almost filled, and it got real intense, like really, really intense. Of course, like, if you have done this before, when your water breaks, it's just like you thought it went 0 to 60 before, and now it's going 0 to 60 super duper fast. So at this point, like I'm feeling very good, but I'm also just kind of like, oh my God, like this went from nothing, what it felt like kind of nothing, to active labor so fast. Like my brain is on. Like I am fully conscious, fully aware. I am not in like the woo woo, like I'm not in another planet. I'm not in a meditative state at all, which I totally was in my first birth and a little bit in my second. I'm just like, I am awake and I don't want to be awake right now. I want my brain to turn off. So the midwife finally gets there. I'm in the tub and I'm like, dude, Lauren, this is crazy. Um, and then I have a contraction that is just like knocked my socks off. It's so intense, so painful. And like I say painful because it really was. This was probably um, I think my son's birth was the most painful for me. Um, but the intensity that just like came on seemingly out of nowhere this time was a little bit like jarring. And I said to her, like, I am scared right now. She's like, what are you scared of? Like, you've done this before. And I was like, I am scared of the pain. Like, whoa, holy hell. Like, my brain is on. Like, and I said to her, I said, I am nowhere near as out of it as I would like to be right now. And she just laughed. And then I had another contraction. I don't remember how many contractions it was where I was like in a world of pain. It was less than five. But finally, the fifth one, I mean, exorcism style yelling coming out of my mouth because right before this contraction started, I did another self check and I said, okay, baby is about here. It's about this deep in my birth canal. So I like wasn't crowning. I wasn't, I couldn't tell, but I don't think like the vaginal opening was doing anything like opening on its own before this. And the baby was still in there, like 2 inches inside. And then, yeah, you. And then literally on that fifth contraction, he went from that position to head out, like so fast, so gnarly, so intense. And I was screaming. And my poor kids, we woke them up. Like literally, we had just put them to bed and we woke them up because they said they wanted to be at the birth. My daughter was crying. Like it was, it all worked out great, but I was just like, oh my God, okay, there's a lot going on right now. Um, but yeah, he went from like that deep in the birth canal to head out in one contraction, and it was so intense, so, so, so gnarly. Um, and on that contraction, the head didn't fully come out and I could feel it. I was guiding him out and my midwife said, is the head out? I said, no, not yet. I waited on another contraction, head came fully out. And it was a huge relief after that. Like when if you've given birth before, once the head is out, you're kind of like, okay, 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 okay. Whew, whew, whew. We're good. Like we're good. And then in my previous births, once the head is out on the next contraction, the baby comes right out, like right out. So I was fully expecting that to happen. And I wasn't having any more contractions. And it wasn't long. It was like a couple minutes, but I was just waiting, like, okay, when's this baby going to come out? And then I just felt this crazy feeling like, and all I said to my midwife was like, oh, like it feels like he's being sucked back up. Like, and that is really what it felt like. It felt like my body was pulling him back up inside me. Um, and she was like, okay. And it happened again. And I was like, oh. And she was like, okay. And then I had another contraction and I tried to get him out and he did not come. And she's like, can I help you? And I was like, yes. And I really wanted to catch my own baby, catch him by myself this time. Um, but she really got all up in there. And I can't remember if I felt a contraction or not because it was pretty excruciating with her hands inside me, and I'll explain why in just a sec. But she got him out really, really quickly. And so, I mean, from like water breaking to born was like 29 minutes. It was insane. It was insane. He came down and out so fast. Um, so after he was born, I looked at her like, oh my God, I can't believe how fast that went. She was like, so that feeling that you felt like he was being sucked back up inside of you, that is like the telltale sign of a true shoulder dystocia. Like that is what we hear over and over. And I mean, basically that's what we learn in school. Like that's the sign for a shoulder dystocia. I was like, whoa, no way. So she said, I usually see a shoulder dystocia when births are really, really fast like this. Like babies don't have the opportunity to turn in time. so that their shoulders are in line with the vaginal opening, basically. And so his shoulder got a little stuck, and she got in there and got him out perfect. And she said, I obviously don't ever wish my clients to experience a shoulder dystocia. She goes, but it is my best skill. Like, I'm so good at shoulder dystocia. So, like, basically, like, I'm glad I was here. And I'm like, yeah, thank God. Um, and and then, well after the birth, she was like, I know you were visualizing and manifesting a fast labor, and I didn't want to say anything, but sometimes it's kind of like be careful what you wish for. And I was like, yeah, noted. That was crazy. Um, but we didn't know the gender. It was a surprise gender, so we found out it was a boy, and we were super happy, super excited, and all in all, I had a very positive experience, even though it was extremely gnarly and extremely intense. Like, it was so fast that I wasn't really in the pain cave for a long time. It was more of a shock. It was less of this, mental toughness situation where it was like dealing with excruciating pain for a really long time. It was just kind of shocking pain because it came on so fast. So, um, what a wild ride. But 9 pounds, 9 ounces, no tearing for the third time in a row. Hell yeah. Um, got a water birth again, and we are done birthing babies. I am done birthing babies. We are done making babies. I am done birthing babies. Feels really crazy to be done, but really good also. And this little guy is just the sweetest, cutest little thing. And I'm so grateful for Lauren, my midwife, Lauren Foreman. If you're in the Austin area, she's fantastic. Here he is. Here he is, a little squish ball. He's already gained 2 pounds. I'm sorry, almost 3 pounds in 1 month. Um, which is crazy. So yeah, that is my story. And thanks for listening. Thanks for following along this pregnancy. And I'll be recording you know, my postpartum journey for you all to follow along with if I get any time to myself these days. Thanks, guys.